Hey friends, welcome to Supreet Mobile. Here I have the iPhone XS and the iPhone 11 Pro. Both these phones are running iOS 13, but the camera experience is quite different. I'm going to show you exactly what those differences are and how to use the new phone like a pro. So here we have the XS, here we have the 11 Pro. We're going to start off by opening the camera app on both phones. You can see it's the same. You have the icon at the bottom, or you can slide from the right. The XS had a 3D touch, which was a little nicer to get in, but it works the same way. Alright, so we're going to go through the camera app from the bottom up. So at the bottom you'll see the shutter icon looks a little different on both phones. This is on the XS, single tap, take a single photo. If you hold it down, it'll take a burst. On the 11 Pro, single tap takes a photo, but when you hold it down, it goes into a video mode, which is nice. And then there's a lock on the right, so if you slide it to the right, it'll lock the video in place, and it'll just keep recording. Then you can tap the button on the right, which is the shutter icon, to take photos, or hit the middle to stop your recording. So then you'll wonder, well, how do you do burst on the 11 Pro? Well, it's not exactly obvious. You actually have to slide this button to the left. But as you can see, what happened there is that I waited too long and it went into video mode. So you kind of have to be quick about it. Like you have to be like that. If you're quick, you move it over and now it's doing burst. And then now to stop this burst, I just have to let go. Alright, so now let's go up to the mode switch. And you can see I'm in photo here and I can tap on portrait to switch to that. I can also skip by 2 by tapping on pano here, and then I can go back to portrait. I can also swipe left and right to switch modes. I can also swipe left and right up here on the camera preview, which is really nice. And then when we look on the 11 Pro here, it looks to be the exact same. I can tap down here, skip by 2. I can also swipe up here. But you'll notice that we're missing something. And that is the square option. What happened to square? Well, we're going to find out in a bit. All right, now let's talk about our zoom options. So here on the XS, we can see the 1x zoom, and if we tap that, we can go to the 2x lens. On the left here, on the 11 Pro, we actually see all 3 lenses at once, which is actually really nice. So we can go from 1x to 0.5 to 2, and back and forth. This would have been nice to have seen on the older phones as well. And then if we want to fine-tune our zoom, we can actually drag on this number here, and then we see this zoom wheel. On the 11 Pro, the zoom wheel looks quite a bit nicer. You can see that we get focal length equivalents for a full-frame camera at the bottom. So if you're used to full-frame cameras, you'll see like your 26mm lens field of view, which is really nice. This would have been better if you could even see in between. So if I'm at like 1.3, what is that in full frame? That would have been nice. I also like that the zoom ring is a little darker. It makes it a little easier to see. So now let's work our way to the very top here. As you can see on the XS, we're seeing more options while we're in photo mode than we are on the 11 Pro, which is a little strange. We have our flash, which on the XS shows us 3 options, but on the 11 Pro, it's just a toggle. It's just an on-off. And on the other side, you have live photos, which is also looks like just to be an on-off, which we have here. So that's similar. And if it's dark enough on the 11 Pro, we'll let you see another icon for the night mode, which we see here. And then you can see it's turned off right now, but if I tap it, it turns it on. And then once there's light again, the icon just magically disappears. All right, now let's talk about this strange symbol in the middle. It seems to have eaten up our other camera options here. So when we tap on this, kind of expected to see something up here, but what actually happened is it actually changed the options down there. So as you can see, if we tap it, flip sides, and then I see 5 options here. So there are a lot of useful options in this menu down here. It's a little annoying to have to go up at the top to go back and forth, especially if you're using the phone with one hand, which is what I do all the time. So luckily enough, you can actually switch it also by going to the bottom here, the mode switch, and swiping up and down. So if we swipe up and down here, you'll see that we can see our options and go back to the mode switcher. On the older phones, when you did this, it didn't do anything. It just kind of ignored you. You can also switch the options down here by swiping up and down in the camera preview. So you can swipe both up in the camera preview and down here to reveal those options, which is really nice. So pretty much this icon at the top is kind of useless. On the older phones, it's worth knowing that when you did this, it actually opened up your filters, which I don't know if a lot of people actually use, but the filter icon's up here at the top right, but also if you swipe up here, you'll be able to change, between different color settings. Alright, now let's go through this magical menu at the bottom here. So at the far left, we see our flash options, which is auto, on, and off. And when we actually tap up here at the top left, you'll see that this actually switches between flash auto and flash off. So if you want to change on, you actually have to go to this magical menu at the bottom. The next one is live photos, also auto on and off. And same thing at the top right here, when we hit the icon, it also switches between auto and off. So on the old phone, on the XS here, you'll see at the top here, flash we had auto on and off, but the live photos it was just on or off. So it's interesting to see the auto option here. So the auto for live photo is different from the flash in that when you do auto flash, it's on or off, right? There's no in between. But with the live auto, if it doesn't detect any motion, it's still going to capture the live photo, but it'll just pause the motion when you look at it in your gallery. And I can cover that in a later video. So as we go through the option at the bottom, the next one we see is 4:3. And hey, there's where our square option is. And there we go, we get square. For aspect ratio, I'm not sure why they took it out of the main switcher, maybe because it wasn't being used that often, but we have it here. And what's also new is that we have 4:3, which is the standard ratio, but we also have 16:9, which fills up much more of the screen. So that's really nice to see. I have no idea why they couldn't bring it to the older phones, but it's nice nevertheless. Alright, next let's go through camera settings. So here we have the XS, the 11 Pro. We're going to go through the XS first. So if you're shooting like a pro, this is kind of the settings that you would probably have. First of all, on preserve settings, these let you set up the camera app exactly how you want it, and then when you come back to the camera, it doesn't change your settings on you. So the camera mode, so if you're in video, it'll keep it to video or photo if you have it. Creative controls, so if you're using a filter or specific depth settings on portrait mode, it'll keep those the way you like them. And also if let's say you hate live photos, if you turn that off, it'll keep it turned off. So usually you'll want to keep those on. Next is the grid, which the grid is really the rule of thirds grid, which just helps you compose a little easier. Scan QR codes, I keep that on because if I need to scan something, it's nice to have it on. It doesn't really do any damage or anything. Video recording, most of you probably already know this, but the default is usually 1080p. If you're a pro, you definitely have this set at 4K. Also another setting down here that people don't talk about very much, but this auto low FPS. If it's low light situation, sometimes it'll want to drop the frame rate down to 24 frames per second from 30. That's kind of annoying because if you're a pro, you kind of want your frame rate to stay constant. So I usually just keep that off. And then also this lock camera. If you're a pro, you know when you want to zoom in and out of your video. So you don't really want the phone to lock the camera on you. So as we go down, obviously we'd want to record stereo sound and formats. Go for high efficiency because that'll let you store more photo and video on your phone. It takes up less space. So obviously we want that because we're going to be recording a lot of stuff. HDR, HDR is awesome, so obviously you want to keep that on. And I usually keep the normal photo. It's very rare that the normal photo is better than the HDR photo, but I have seen it happen. So I like to keep this on just to have that. So now let's look at the 11 Pro here in the camera setting and see what's different. So starting off from the top, you'll see preserve settings. If you go in here, looks the exact same. If we go down to grid, that's also just the rule of thirds grid. It would have been nice to have seen some other composition options for grids, especially since it's a Pro phone. It would have been nice. As we go down, all these are the same. So now we come down to HDR, which is very similar, but you can see that they've actually taken out our keep normal photo option. So I guess Apple doesn't want us to have access to the normal photos anymore, or maybe there's some technical limitation, but it's a little strange because that was kind of a nice feature to have. Maybe they're really confident that their processing will make sure that Smart HDR always looks fantastic. Alright, next let's look at the brand new composition section here that we get on the 11 Pro, and it's also on the iPhone 11. So these options are really confusing and they're not explained very well, but from a Pro standpoint you probably want to turn the first two on. And what these do is that when you're shooting with, let's say on the 11 Pro, if you're shooting with the 1X main camera, it'll actually capture data from the ultra wide as well. And then when you edit the photo, you can actually use the ultra wide to help, recrop or realign your photo. And the videos will kind of do the same thing. From a Pro perspective, you probably don't want to turn auto apply adjustments. So what this will do is the phone will automatically readjust, realign, recrop a little bit of your photo. If you're a Pro, you want to handle all that on your own. The auto apply adjustments is a cool option though. I see this used for people that aren't that interested in photography and just want to get good photos. It'll let them take a shot that's badly composed and the phone will try to automatically fix it for them as much as possible. So as you can see, there's more than meets the eye with the iPhone 11 camera. Some of the features are brand new, but many of them have just been moved around from the older phones. It would have been nice to have seen a little bit of an update for the XS and older phones as well, but I guess they wanted to keep it for pros only. There's a lot more that I could have talked about. I didn't go into any actual photos or videos and the shooting experience. I'd like to hear from you on what you'd like to see. Please leave a comment, let me know. I want to cover more in-depth videos from a software standpoint as well. And there's a bunch of other camera apps on the App Store that try to give you a pro shooting experience with things like raw photo capture and now multi-camera recording. And it's really strange for Apple to have left these out, especially since they redid the camera app for the iPhone 11. Like, why would they not just build some of these pro features in? And so are these other apps even worth it? That's a topic that we can also talk about in future videos. Thanks again for watching. I hope we get to chat again in a future video. Take care.